They say nothing interesting ever happens in quiet neighborhoods like mine. But what happened that afternoon changed everything I thought I knew about comfort, loneliness, and what it means to truly be seen. I never expected anything unusual when I stayed home alone that day. But then my neighbor knocked, and what followed? I still think about it when the house is silent. Before I begin, I want to ask, what city are you watching from today? I'd love to know where this story is reaching. Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far it travels. It was late April when it happened. One of those deceptively calm spring days where the breeze is just the right amount of cool, and the light streaming through the window gives everything a soft golden glow. I had the house to myself, which was a rare luxury. My husband was out of town on a business trip, and both of our boys had moved out years ago. I remember thinking how strange the silence felt, freeing, but also heavy in a way I couldn't quite put into words. I'm 52, and though I don't feel old by any stretch, I've reached a point where people seem to stop looking at you like you're someone who could still be surprised. Life marriage routines. They form a shell around you, comforting but also dulling. That day I wore a soft gray sweater, a pair of faded jeans, and had my chestnut brown hair tied up in a loose bun. No makeup, no plans, just me, a cup of tea, and a half-finished novel I'd been trying to get through for weeks. It was around 2 p.m. when I heard the knock. 3 firm raps on the front door. Not that hurried kind that signal urgency, but not casual either. I paused for a moment, startled. I wasn't expecting anyone. I placed my tea down and crossed the living room, peeking through the curtain. Standing on the porch was my neighbor Lucas. Lucas had moved in next door 6 months earlier. He was in his early 40s, tall, broad-shouldered, with a kind face and quiet energy. Divorced, no kids, lived alone. We had spoken a few times, small neighborly chats, while collecting the mail or commenting on the weather over the fence. I never thought much about him beyond that. I opened the door. "Hi," he said, offering a hesitant smile. "Sorry to bother you. I think I might have locked myself out." I was trimming the backyard trees and the door swung shut behind me. "Oh no," I said, stepping aside instinctively. Come in, come in. That breeze has been a little sneaky today." He chuckled lightly and stepped inside. He wore a black t-shirt damp with sweat around the collar, work gloves tucked in his back pocket, and his hair was tousled, flecks of sawdust clinging to his forearms. "Thanks," he said, glancing around. "I was going to wait until my spare key got dropped off later, but then I remembered you lived alone. Didn't want you to be surprised if you saw me pacing outside like a lunatic." "No worries," I said, closing the door behind him. "It's nice to have some company." Actually, that last part slipped out before I could catch it. We ended up in the kitchen. I offered him water and he accepted. I handed him the glass and for a second our fingers brushed. I pulled away quickly, but something in the way he looked at me made me pause. It wasn't overt, just present, intentional. "Your house feels peaceful," he said, looking around. "Mine still smells like paint." "Old furniture helps," I joked. "And about 20 years of family chaos soaked into the walls." He smiled. "Must be full of stories." I leaned against the counter, watching him take a sip of water. There was a calmness in the room, but also a strange kind of awareness. He wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't flirting, but there was a softness in his tone, the way his eyes lingered, that made me feel visible. Caught me off guard. So I said, trying to change the subject, "Any idea when your spare key is showing up?" He shrugged. "About an hour, maybe less. My brother's dropping it off." "You're welcome to wait here," I said. He nodded, and for a while we just stood there. I was surprised at how comfortable the silence between us was. No pressure, no awkwardness. We eventually moved into the living room. He sat on the arm of the couch and I settled into the armchair. We talked about little things at first: gardening, home projects, his work as a freelance designer, then deeper things. He told me about his divorce, how it ended more with exhaustion than drama. I found myself opening up too, about the way long marriages shift, how silence becomes easier than confrontation. At one point I said something. I don't even remember what that made him laugh. Really laugh. He leaned his head back, eyes squinting, teeth showing. And something about that moment, the light catching his face, the casual way he had one knee bent against the couch, it made me see him differently. Not just as a neighbor, not even as a man, but as a person, raw and alive, sitting in my quiet living room like he belonged there. I felt a flutter I hadn't felt in years, and I hated that I felt it. I looked down at my hands, suddenly self-conscious. But then I felt his gaze on me again. Not intrusive, just warm. "You have a calm way about you," he said softly. "It's nice." I met his eyes. "Thank you. That's nice to hear." The air shifted. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even flirtation. Not exactly. It was something more delicate. Recognition, maybe. That two people who had spent a long time being invisible had found a strange fleeting awareness in each other's company. Then his phone buzzed. "My brother's outside," he said, standing. I walked him to the door. He paused on threshold. "Thanks again," he said, "for the water and the conversation." "Anytime," I said. He smiled, then left. The door clicked shut behind him, and the house was quiet again. But something had changed. Not in the world, not even between us, but in me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept turning over in bed. Sheets twisting around my legs, the weight of the silence now different, thicker somehow. My husband had texted me earlier that evening, something short and polite. "Flight was delayed. I'll call you tomorrow. Love you." I stared at it longer than I should have. I wasn't angry, just numb, like reading a message from someone I used to know very well but didn't anymore. I turned off my phone and lay in the dark, the only sound the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. But in my mind I kept replaying the afternoon. Lucas's voice, his laughter, the way he'd looked at me. Not with desire, not even curiosity, but with that steady kind of attention I hadn't felt in years. Like I mattered in that moment, not as someone's wife or mother, but as a woman. The next morning I stood by the kitchen sink, watching sunlight slide across the backyard fence. I was still in my robe, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee, when I heard a familiar sound, the rustling of leaves and the clink of shears from next door. My heart jumped a little before I could stop it. Lucas was out there again. I told myself not to look. I even turned away, but something tugged at me. I pulled the curtain aside just slightly. He was trimming the low branches of the tree near the fence, shirt damp again, headphones in, focused. He moved with ease, unhurried, confident, grounded. I let the curtain fall and pressed my hand to my chest. Ridiculous. I told myself, "You're 52, married. You've raised 2 children, managed a household, worked, sacrificed, endured, and here you are acting like a teenager over a neighbor trimming a tree." Still, something inside me had stirred. Later that afternoon, I was folding laundry in the living room when the doorbell rang. I nearly dropped a towel. I walked to the door, my heart already quickening, and opened it. It was him. "Hey," Lucas said, smiling. He held something in his hand. "I found this by your side fence. Thought it might be yours." It was a paperback novel. Weather-worn, the pages slightly curled. "Oh," I said, reaching for it. "Yes, that's mine. Must have blown out when I was reading outside last week." He hesitated like he wanted to say more. "You are free for a coffee." I blinked. He quickly added, I'm heading out to the corner cafe." Figured I'd ask. "No pressure." There was a long pause. I looked down at my bare feet and then back up at his hopeful expression. "Give me 5 minutes," I said. The cafe wasn't far, just a 10-minute walk. We didn't say much at first, just ordered, found a quiet table outside, and settled in with our drinks. The day was warm, birds chirping in the trees, the soft bustle of traffic far enough to feel like background music. He leaned back, fingers drumming on his cup. I hope it wasn't weird of me to ask. Yesterday was nice. I can talk to many people like that, especially not neighbors. It wasn't weird, I said. I enjoyed it too. We talked again, this time longer, about books, about growing up in small towns. He told me he used to draw comic books as a kid. I told him I once dreamed of being a travel writer, but life got in the way. We laughed about the strange ways time passes when you're not looking. "I think we stop asking ourselves what we want after a certain point," he said at one point. "Like we just accept the rhythm we're handed." That hit me harder than I expected. I looked at him, really looked at him. There was no agenda in his words, no implication, just truth. Simple, quiet truth. When we walked back toward our street, the silence between us was comfortable again, but charged, not with tension, but with understanding. He paused at my gate. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Thank you for asking," I replied. There was a moment where our eyes held just long enough to feel like something was there. Something unspoken, fragile. waiting to either bloom or disappear. He nodded, then turned toward his house. I went inside and sat down on the edge of the couch, that paperback still in my hands. My fingers brushed the worn cover and I smiled, not because of the book, but because I had said yes, because I had allowed myself to be seen, to be heard, to feel. That evening I cooked dinner in silence, the aroma of garlic and rosemary filling the kitchen. I set the table for one, even though I normally wouldn't bother. I opened a bottle of wine. I poured a single glass, not for celebration but for presence and maybe, just maybe, for possibility. 2 days passed. I didn't see Lucas and I told myself that was for the best. I kept busy, cleaned out the upstairs closet, answered a few emails I'd been ignoring, took a walk around the block just to stretch my legs. I'd even called my sister and talked about everything but what had been lingering in the back of my mind, because admitting it out loud might make it real, and I wasn't ready for that. But the truth was I missed him. Not in some dramatic romantic way. More like missing a breeze when the windows are shut. Something that made the air feel lighter. Something I hadn't realized I'd wanted until it was gone. On the third morning, I was trimming the basil in the little planter by the kitchen window when I heard a voice. "Looks like your garden's doing better than mine." I turned around, startled, and there he was, Lucas, leaning slightly over the fence that divided our yards. He looked relaxed, smiling, but there was a trace of hesitation in his eyes, like he wasn't sure how welcome he'd be. "It's just basil," I said, smiling back. "But I'm proud of it." He laughed and then his smile softened. "I was thinking about the other day. Wanted to say thank you for the coffee, the company." "You already did," I said gently. "But you're welcome." A silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was curious. He scratched the back of his neck. I was wondering if he'd like to come over. "Just dinner. Nothing fancy. I cook a mean stir-fry." I didn't answer right away. I could feel my pulse in my throat, the kind of question that seemed simple on the surface but carried layers underneath. "I'd like that," I said finally. "But I'll bring dessert. That's my only rule." His grin widened. "Deal." That evening I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. I didn't wear anything daring, just a deep burgundy blouse and dark jeans, hair down around my shoulders. I added a small touch of mascara, a hint of lip color. I wasn't trying to look younger. I just wanted to feel like me, or at least the version of me I hadn't seen in a long time. When I knocked on his door, he opened it almost immediately. His home smelled like ginger and garlic, warm and inviting. The lights were dim, music low, and the table was already set. "You weren't kidding," I said. "You really do cook." He chuckled. "You'll have to be the judge of that." We sat across from each other, candles flickering between us. The conversation flowed easily. Books again, music, old travel memories. We laughed, we lingered, and as the meal ended, the mood shifted without warning. We were sitting on his couch, a small plate of cookies between us when the power flickered and then cut out completely. "Oh," I said, blinking in the sudden dark. He laughed. "That's the second time this month." Transformer down the streets on its last leg. The room was lit only by the candles from dinner. Their glow reflected in the glass of the window, in the softness of his face. "I should probably go," I said, though I made no move to stand. "You don't have to rush," he said quietly. "You're safe here." There it was again, that careful honesty, that quiet certainty that somehow felt like permission, not for anything physical, but for something much deeper, to be known, to be real, to sit in the dark and not pretend. I looked at him, really looked. "I'm not used to this," I said. "Someone seeing me without needing something, without expecting anything." "I don't expect anything," he said. "Just this. Just you here." I don't know what came over me then. Maybe it was the wine. The warmth, the months or years of emotional silence I hadn't realized I'd been living in. But I reached out. My hand found his. We didn't move for a long time. Just sat there, hands joined, letting the silence speak for us. When the power returned 20 minutes later, it felt almost rude. The lights buzzed back to life. The music started again, but something between us had shifted, and it didn't need light to be seen. I stood to leave. "Thank you," I said. He walked me to the door. "Will I see you again soon?" "Yes," I whispered. "Think you will." And as I stepped back into the night, the breeze cool against my cheeks, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Hope. Not for a new life, Not even for a new love, but for the rediscovery of something long buried beneath duty and routine. Me. The next few days felt strangely delicate. I didn't rush to see him again. I didn't text. He didn't call. And yet I carried him with me in small, quiet moments, folding laundry while smiling to myself, stirring soup while thinking about the way he looked at me across the candle light. Not with hunger. Not with pity, but with understanding. For the first time in years, I started to look at my own reflection differently. I didn't see a woman past her prime. I saw warmth in my eyes, softness in my smile. A life lived, yes, but also a woman still capable of feeling deeply, still capable of being seen. I thought a lot about what it all meant, about boundaries, about loyalty, about honesty, and mostly about silence. Because silence, I've learned, can be the loudest voice in a marriage. My husband came home that Friday evening, rolled his suitcase into the hallway, and kissed me on the cheek like always. He asked about the groceries, told me how awful airport coffee had been, and then sat on the couch and turned on the news. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching him. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't unfaithful. He wasn't anything that could be pointed at or accused. He was simply gone slowly over time, like colors fading from fabric. And I had let it happen, hadn't I? I had made excuses, called it normal, told myself this was what long-term looked like. But I couldn't unfeel what I had felt that week. That night I couldn't sleep. I slipped out of bed and sat in the living room with the lights off. The silence now was too sharp, the walls too narrow. My phone lit up. A message. Lucas just saw your kitchen light go off. Everything okay? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed me. Yeah, just thinking asterisk. A pause, then Lucas about us . I hesitated, then sent me about me . Another pause, then his reply Lucas good, you deserve to . The next morning I made coffee and stood at the window. His house was quiet, no sounds, no movement, but I didn't expect any. Later that day, I went outside and sat in the small patch of sun on the back porch. I closed my eyes and breathed it in. The air, the stillness, the truth of it all. Because nothing happened between us, nothing physical, no lines crossed, but something had changed within me, and I couldn't go back to pretending I didn't notice. My husband left again 2 days later. Another trip, another schedule. This time I didn't feel guilty for not missing him. I didn't feel ashamed for missing someone else. I baked banana bread and walked next door. Lucas answered before I knocked. You always know, I said, smiling. He stepped aside. I just listen. We sat at his kitchen table, sharing bread, sharing air, not needing many words. The connection wasn't romantic. It was real, honest, necessary. I think I'm going to take some time, I told him, to figure out what I want, who I am now. His eyes were steady on mine. I think that's brave. I think it's overdue. When I left his house that afternoon, I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because for once I wasn't chasing anything. I was walking toward myself. And somewhere deep down I knew whatever came next, it would be mine. Chosen, felt, lived. Not out of habit, but out of truth.